there. Good evening. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Net's program where we talk to reporters and editors and writers and journalists and people who are covering the borough of the Bronx. We also have something kind of special for you in our second segment. We're going to go to City Island for something special. But right now, let's start with the digital editor of the Bronx Times. It is Camille Botello. We haven't met Camille before. Nice to have you on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So just before we get into things like the Kingsbridge Armory and some other stuff, let's ask you, who are you? where, where are you from? And a little bit about your background, so people, when they read your stuff, your wonderful work in the Bronx Times, they know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Camille. I'm the digital editor of the Bronx Times, like you mentioned. I grew up in a small town in Idaho, just about 2 hours north of Boise. And then I went to school for journalism near Portland, Oregon, in McMinnville. And then after school,
I have to just interject. People who read your work, and it's real, it's grassroots and it's down to earth, will say, "Wait a minute, she comes from there." If you want
yeah,
to click on the map, two places that have nothing to do with each other, you pick the Bronx and Boise, Idaho. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
yeah. No, I get that all the time. It's super interesting. Yeah, like I said, so I'm from the West, and then after I graduated from college, that was kind of like right at the start of the pandemic. And I wasn't sure what to do. I had a journalism degree, but not a lot of places were hiring. And I had never been to Alaska before, and I moved to Alaska sort of for no reason. yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So talk about different ends of the country, right? And so that's I started reporting actually in Alaska at a daily newspaper in a small town there.
Well, how did you end up here? Not that we're not thrilled to have you, because as you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I actually have a cousin who I'm really close with who went to NYU, and so he's been here for about 5 years now. And it just sort of lined up. I was ready to leave Alaska, although I loved it very much. And I just thought, hey, why don't I try New York City? So it was kind of another thing that I did, and then I was able to get a
How,
reporting job here.
how long ago was that?
That was a year ago now.
A year ago. Wow, I
hmm
mean, I feel like I've read so much of your material that it would be longer than that. So one of the things that I love, and of course we're Bronx centered, and we spend a lot of time talking about the Bronx, and we spend a lot of time talking about the Bronx. It's always interesting that somebody from the outside gives their impression. What do you
hmm
think? What's it been like? What inspires you? What annoys you? There's plenty. But what's it been like for a young woman from the West to be here and covering the Bronx?
Yeah, it's so different. New York City, there's really nothing like it. I had been here just, for a couple days here and there traveling or visiting, my cousin or going to his graduation. I came here last summer before I moved as well. And the West is so big, it's so expansive, it's so new, but out here the East Coast is so different. The architecture is beautiful, it's old. The culture on the West is a little bit more relaxed and laid back. Out here, everybody's go 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 all the time.
You live on top of each other, literally.
Yeah, literally. So it's been a great experience. I love it here.
Mhm. And favorite stories. I mean, we're going to talk about the Kingsbridge Armory, but just give me a sense of something you've covered that you said, "Wow, this is pretty cool. This is like
Yeah.
really interesting."
Yeah, reporting in the Bronx has been great. I think in a lot of ways, I know that my editor Christian Falcone and a lot of my colleagues and former colleagues, we talk a lot about how the Bronx is sort of, and you've spoken about this as well, about how the borough is a little bit underrepresented in media, and so I think that we really try to cover a lot of nuances of the borough, not just crime and not just some of those stories that make headlines in daily publications or even national publications. And one of the stories that I found that was just very fulfilling for me to be able to write, I covered two sports clubs. One was in East New York, Brooklyn, and one was in the Belmont section of the Bronx. These two clubs, along with a couple others, I didn't have time to spotlight all of them, unfortunately, they received a grant from Nike last year that was specifically targeting young girls in sport. And so I got to go and shadow a couple practices take my own photos, interview some of the little girls, their parents, the coaches, and that was a
So
really fulfilling one.
to me, that's where real life in the Bronx is that
Mhm.
we do have opportunities. And, you said I've talked about being underrepresented. To me, I feel like it's undiscovered territory. I mean, nobody knows we're here. It's like, oh,
Totally.
it's a little weird. Anyway, let's
Mhm.
just talk about the Kingsbridge Armory, which has been a center of focus, of course, for generations, in essence.
Mhm.
And now Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams, you wrote about this, announced $200 million in grants. Why don't you talk about, you were at that press conference, and talk about what it was like, and or what your thoughts are about it.
Yeah, like I said, I've only lived here for a year, but it seems like the Kingsbridge Armory has, long been a source of a lot of intrigue. It was originally opened in 1917 as a military facility and had been used, for a while after that. It was actually listed later on a National Registry of Historical Places in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But since 1996, it's been mostly vacant. And so different community groups and elected officials, as we all know, have announced ambitious plans for redevelopment, which includes a lot that have failed, like a shopping mall there. The one of the bigger ones recently was, I think it might have been
The,
one of the biggest.
yeah, the Kingsbridge National Ice Center.
Yes, yes, the ice center. And so a lot of people, after these couple proposals have failed, have been wondering what's going to become of this huge space because it's 11 stories tall and it's about 3 football fields deep. It's
Just
massive.
yeah.
Right. And so yeah, so last week when Governor Hochul and New York City Mayor Eric Adams said they basically said they really, really want to get some funding so something can actually become of this space. And so each administration committed $100 million in grants.
That's pretty significant, I would think. The
Hmm.
question that I've heard from the community now, Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, had gotten community people. It's our armory and all that, and they want real input. So far, there's not a mention of community ownership, union jobs, local hire, shared wealth, which is all the things that people say. We'll see, I suppose, how this plays out. Who knows?
Yeah, actually, at the press conference, Governor Hochul did mention that she wants, part of the grant funding, at least from her administration, and other community leaders have spoken about it before, that they really want to focus on hiring local people who live in the
That'd
Bronx
be great.
to fill these jobs, right? Exactly. And so I think, and the local officials that I spoke to as well emphasized that point. I spoke to Bronx Community Board 7 District Manager Carla Cabrera Carrera,
Mhm.
and also State Senator Gustavo Rivera, and they kind of both said that that they're more confident now than ever that something can actually become of the redevelopment because they are grants and because the city won't have to pay back any of that money.
Right, and also I think because the community is so energized about it. One
Hmm.
other thing before we run out of time that you wrote about, this was very interesting to me. You wrote a story about this was a little while back about we had a 3 day heat spell. Although this 3 days certainly yesterday it certainly felt like it was pretty hot. Um,
Right.
but it said that Bronxites were still some of the most vulnerable. Why do you think we would be more vulnerable than other communities in New York City, whether it be Brooklyn or Queens or parts of it?
Yeah, that was an interesting one too. I sort of had the idea because, as we all know, a couple weeks ago, the National Weather Service announced an excessive heat advisory for New York City, with temperatures, ranging in the high 90s, but could feel like, up to 108 degrees. Um, and I found, looking through the heat vulnerability index, that the Bronx has the most neighborhoods in the city that are deemed highest risk on a scale of 1 to 5 at 22 neighborhoods. And so that's compared to 11 in Brooklyn, 7 in Queens, 3 in Manhattan, and 0 on Staten Island. Um, and
Now,
so the
is this because of the various health indicators, or poverty? I'm guessing would be an
mhm,
aspect of it. It certainly is concrete around here, and that reflects heat pretty well.
right, right, yeah. There are 5 main factors that the city environment and health and data portal emphasize kind of make a neighborhood higher risk versus lower risk. And those include income level, those include access to air conditioning, of course,
Oh,
canopy cover, green space, and
excuse me, that was a phrase I had never really heard before, which was in your article, and that was the idea of canopy cover. So that's interesting. That would reflect places, or maybe even awnings on stores, I'm guessing, or other places where you could go and just get some shade.
yeah, I think it's mostly referencing, green space and different trees, not just in parks, but in sidewalks and neighborhoods as well. But the city environment and health and data portal also emphasizes that neighborhoods most at risk is, quote, rooted in past and present racism. And, as we know, the Bronx is a borough full of diverse cultures, and it has one of the highest populations of Black and brown people as well. So that's a factor.
Listen, we could break this down and drive ourselves crazy over it. Just before we run out of time, sneak preview, what are you working on? What are we getting next?
Yeah, I'm excited to be covering a lot of different things. We kind of all do a lot of different beat coverage at the Bronx Times. Right now I think we're going to be prepping for election season coming up here, September, October, November.
Yeah.
Hopefully get a few more sports stories in there by the end of the summer. That would be one of my goals as well.
Is that, now you mentioned that when I asked you about favorite stories, that was what you went to right away. You like covering sports?
I do. Yeah.
I mean, you can go out there at Yankee Stadium and do that, but it's pretty exciting when you see kids in high schools and even younger doing it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really fun to cover sports. I used to cover in Alaska, and so whenever I get a sports story here, I jump on it. I think there are so many different angles. Sports means so much to a lot of people, so it's definitely one of my favorite beats.
I was going to say, it's one thing to do the score and the batting averages and all that, and do like a regular sports story, but it's much more inspirational to do it about kids who are coming from families and achieve for whatever reason. Listen, Camille Botello, digital editor of the Bronx Times. I hope you'll love working and covering us here, because we need you, and you're a really good reporter, and we want you to keep writing great stuff for us and about us, and find out interesting stuff. Okay.
Well, thanks very much.
You have to promise me, but that's what I'm putting up.
Right. Thank you, Gary.
Listen, and send our Bronx Nets regards to all our friends over there at Schneps and the Bronx Times. And we'll see you around town. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. And as I mentioned, we're going to go to the movies on City Island. Don't go away.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org. Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
Found my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I'm thrilled because, a lot of times you say, gee, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. I've always wanted to do a segment on the cinema on the sound, the movie theater, right there on the strip, right there in downtown City Island. And so let's say hello to manager Jerry Landi. Nice to see you, Jerry.
Thank you for having me, Gary. Nice to see you.
So let's just talk about the origin of, now it's about a year and a half old, the origin of cinema on the sound. There was some empty space right there on the, as I mentioned, at 270 City Island Avenue. What gave you the crazy idea that I'm going to turn this into a movie theater?
Well, as most people in the Bronx know me, I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for a long time. And I travel all over the country and I show my films in different states. My films are shown in different countries. And you get these great films that you see and you never see again. Like you see them at a film festival, everybody loves it, they get awards, and the movie disappears. So I started showing movies at Clipper Coffee on probably a monthly basis. I would have movie night and I would show these independent films. I would have the filmmakers there. I would have them talk about their process afterward, do a Q&A. And people really liked it. And I started exposing people to genres of film that they never thought they even would like. So my mission statement was, if I could get a bigger space, I'd like to open up a theater and have it open to filmmakers, show a lot of old movies, do plays, exhibitions, anything for the community. We've done Breakfast with Santa Claus. We did filmmakers with disabilities showcase where we showed all these films from disabled filmmakers. So it was just to get, we lost that communal feeling of being in a movie theater, especially during the pandemic. And you got to see movies with a group of people. So I figured, well, why not do something out there, introduce people to these new films, introduce people to each other. And so far in the year and a half that we've been open, we've met so many filmmakers from right here in the Bronx who've had their first films shown on Cinema on the Sound. So
I'm going to give you applause because this is what we need in the Bronx. We have more creativity than any place else I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
And so you're giving it a chance to show. We should mention, you mentioned Clipper Coffee. It's right next door.
Yes.
A couple of doors down.
The owner of Clipper Coffee actually is the owner of Cinema on the Sound.
Oh, yeah, and the property. I see.
Yeah, so he owns. So yeah, so he's the guy who pays the bills. And he thought that this was a great idea. He's a community guy, and he does a lot of things for the community. And he thought that this was kind of like an offspring of what he does at the coffee shop, where he brings people together. So that's what we're doing on City Island. We're introduced. Yeah.
Now, in terms of the first of all, the audience, are they people from? You say the audience was kind of, you had told me they were looking for karate movies, and you came up with karate movies. But are these City Island people, or people come from elsewhere?
We've
dinner in a movie. You want to go to City Island because you can have a really good dinner, you have a really good seafood dinner, and then go see a flick.
You could go anywhere and see Oppenheimer or see the Barbie movie, right? But there's not too many places you could see Peter Jackson's early films, Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles, see old film noir movies from the 20s, pre-code movies. Also, we show movies like musicals and all kinds of films. We kind of mix it up. So
so people come from other places.
Oh yeah, people. I've had people from Long Island. I've had people from Queens. I've had people from Westchester, Rockland County. A lot of them are filmmakers, and they're looking for a venue to show their films. So they're coming to the Bronx to show their movies to Bronx people, and we're getting a lot of audience from. We have like a pretty decent crowd on City Island that supports us, but we're getting people from the surrounding areas that are coming in. And like you said, come to City Island, have something to eat, come to Cinema on the Sound and see a whacked out movie.
One of the reasons I like Jerry, he's got a little Bronx perspective. Like he'll say whacked out movies. We get that. In terms of selecting the movies and getting the films, is that an issue? And do you show them with film, or at this point, of course, everything is digital, so you have some digital projection? I'm just curious about that, because the rights to the movie, the fact that you charge admission, all that kind of complicates as opposed to you saying to your friends, come sit with me in my living room and I'm going to show watch a couple of old movies.
Most of the movies that we show have no rights to them, and a lot of people would probably be surprised to know that nobody owns the rights to a lot of these movies. When DVDs first came out, the reason why you saw Night of the Living Dead in every bin was because nobody owned the rights to it. So we're showing movies that don't have the rights. And I've actually reached out to filmmakers like the director of The Human Centipede to show his first movie, and he said, yeah, sure. So I guess being a filmmaker, when I reach out to filmmakers and want to show their film,
they get it.
They get it. And 99.9% of the time, they're like, wow, you're showing this movie. This movie hasn't been shown in years. Yeah, please show it out there. And we've even had filmmakers do video introductions before the film to say, thank you for coming to Cinema on the Sound in the Bronx. And the director of The Human Centipede, Tom Six, did a personalized video. Said, thank you for showing my film in the Bronx.
Right. So it's really, it's kind of an organic thing, so to speak, that it kind of, whatever you want to do, you figure out a way to put
to get it shown. And like I said, a lot of these movies that we show studio doesn't have the rights to them anymore. Like they're open rights. And I'm on an archive where they tell me the movies that I could show. So all the movies we show, I can show because nobody owns the rights to them. So yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. In terms of the film and theater in the movie theaters in the Bronx, this, as far as I know, is the only independent theater. Now, we used to have more of them, of course, in different neighborhoods, but this is literally the only independent theater. Do I have that right?
You have it right, yeah. And it's really sad because growing up in the Bronx, I used to get on the bus and goes to the Loews American, the Palace Theater, the Circle Theater, the Interborough on Tremont Avenue, which was like, I could walk there from where I was. So I grew up going to the movies, and when the movies were packed, and that was the one thing. There was no cable at that point, right? There were 3 channels, tell the kids that, 3 channels. And so everybody went to the movies, and the next day a movie opened up and everybody was talking about that film. So we've lost that. And as a filmmaker, it's sad because when I show my films to these audiences, they really dig them. They're like, wow, look at this. I'm saying, yeah, I wish more people would go back to going to the movies and getting this communal experience.
Okay, so this program is going to air Thursday, the 17th. And so after that, you were telling me, To Sir with Love, is that a film you're going to show?
Yeah, that's one of the films we're going to show. Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah. And we have next month we have a documentary called the filmmaker reached out to me called Rock and Horror, which shows how heavy metal and horror have blended, and it's an original documentary showing it in the Bronx for the first time. So that's kind of what I really want to do, and I'm reaching out to filmmakers. If you really have a film and you can't get it out there, contact me because we'll show it in the theater, we'll promote the hell out of it, and we'll just get you out there.
Yeah, and also for everybody's sake, your friends and family and people who want to see it in the theater with other people and see people's reactions to it, that probably works out pretty well. So let's see, you have To Sir with Love. You mentioned that there's a karate movie coming.
Yeah, and also one thing I want to say,
but people love it.
Well, we showed Armor of God, which the rights are floating in the air, which was one of Jackie Chan's first movies. Right. And people came into the audience and go, "Oh my God, this movie's so great!" I go, "Yeah." So we're, I just wanted to say, because it's kind of personal to me, that what I really want to do is expose Bronx filmmakers to the public, because I had a kid this weekend who never saw his film on a big screen, and it was the first time he saw his movie on a big screen in my theater with other short films, and he walked away and it was like Christmas morning to a 3-year-old. So I really want to get
it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. And you get that feeling, I'm sure, often. The other one you mentioned to me was Meet the Feebles. That's the Peter Jackson movie.
Yes. We showed Bad Taste a couple of weeks ago, which was his first movie. And a lot of people came in and were thinking about Lord of the Rings. And when they saw this movie, they go, "What happened to this guy?" I said, he lost his independent roots and he went big time, which is something, which happens to the best of us, I guess.
So let's see. Excuse me. So let's see. Cinema on the Sound, 270 City Island Avenue. how do people find out what's coming up? I mean, there's an email list. I know I'm on it, so I see everything.
Yeah, you could go to you could email me at landyjerry@yahoo.com, and I'll put you on the email list. We're on Cinema on the Sound on Instagram, so it's Cinema on the Sound, and go there. And every week I post what we're showing, special events, and whatever we're up to is up on Instagram. It's I've gotten so many followers just through the Instagram site, so Instagram has been very good to us.
You know what communicates very well? Your passion for doing this. You know,
Oh, thank you.
I've conducted a million interviews, and just hearing you just talk about the importance of, it's not only that you have this theater and that's a nice thing, but the importance of emphasizing Bronx artists, giving Bronx filmmakers a chance, showing original films, bringing the community together. And, you know, I'm going to say it editorially, you get it. You get the idea, you know?
And I'm Bronx centric. I'm a Bronx boy. I'm going to die here, hopefully. And I just
I hope not soon, because we need this theater.
I still have a few things to do, I guess. But yeah, it's I can't tell you about like how I travel this country. When people find out I'm from the Bronx, they look at you in a certain way. And then the way I talk about the Bronx, how passionate I am about this place, and the films I shot here, the people I've met here. It's a shame that only we know about this. And I've always tried to bring the Bronx out of the Bronx and show people how cool we really are out here.
You didn't see the previous segment. We had Camille Botello from the Bronx Times, and she's from the West. She's from Idaho, of all places. And so she talked about coming here. And I mentioned to her, I don't even remember if I said it on the air or off the air, it's like undiscovered territory. Nobody knows we're here. It's just we're here. We're living these very interesting, complex lives, and nobody knows we're here. Okay, Cinema on the Sound, 270 City Island Avenue. And when do you show the movies? Whenever it makes sense?
Well, it's just no. Well, now we're on a Wednesday night at 7:00 and Saturday nights at 7:00. Right. I do a lot of special screenings sometimes, and if you're on my email list, you'll get that. But we found out that Wednesday night's a good night. People like to get out of the house on Wednesday night. We're showing crazy movies on Wednesday night.
Break up the week pretty good. Please let's advertise our friends at City Island. Have a nice dinner. Stop into the Artist, which is a new name for Elliot Glick's place. Go across the street and
to the Black Whale, to the new pizzeria we have, to Sticks Ice Cream.
Say hello to Ron Turner in the Focal Point Gallery.
We're all a big happy family out here. We all work together, especially when it comes to art. And
Jerry, we got to run. Stay well. We'll see you, and let's keep running films at the Cinema on the Sound. That, ladies and gentlemen, will do it for the Bronx Buzz. Thank you to Camille. Thank you so much to Jerry. Thank you to you. And if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I'll be here next week.